Hey, 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 it is an unstoppable day. And you know, if it's Tuesday, it's got to be the Unstoppable Story Show with your host, Terrence Leffridge. That would be me, your boy, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge with Unstoppable Coaching Services, where we help you create your vision, implement your vision, but more importantly, we hold you accountable to living the life you were created to live. And one of the ways we do that is by opening up this Unstoppable Story Show to ordinary people like myself and you that have a message that you want to get out to the masses. So thank you guys for coming in. Come on in, swipe and share, swipe and share. You know how we do. Quality programming on a Tuesday night. We know you could be anywhere else doing anything else. So we thank you for taking time out to be a part of some quality programming with some wonderful guests that are sharing some powerful stories. So as always, we want you to come on in, swipe and share, get comfortable. Hopefully you've got your favorite libation like I've got mine. Shout out to my coach, Dr. Ruben West. Let me make sure we can get that picture around there. Dr. Ruben West of the Black Belt Speakers Group and the Live Your Best Life, because you only get one. And I'm living my best life, drinking my favorite libation. So hopefully you got your favorite libation, whether it's water, whether it's coffee, whether it's something else. No judgment here. Whatever you need to drink to help you make it through. And hopefully you've got a good writing pad, writing pen, and some paper, because we're definitely going to give you some information that you can use and take with you this evening. So, hey, if you are watching us live, thank you so much. Go ahead and put the number one in the feed if you are watching us live. But hey, I understand it's the summertime and you probably got some other things to do. So you may be watching us in the replay, and that's absolutely fine. If you're watching us in the replay, then I want you to go ahead and put the number 2 in the replay, and we plan to shout you out throughout the show, as well as any comments or questions that you might have. So remember, if you're watching us live, put in the number 1. If you're watching us in the replay, put in the number 2 as we go ahead and we share this out to some other people. Make sure that everybody knows that we are on the air. Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful week, winding down August, the dog days of summer coming to an end. I know some people, some states have already gone back to school. Maybe in some other countries you've gone back to school. So we just want to say, hey, if that's you, good luck. Have a great school year. Have an unstoppable school year. We are looking for nothing but the best from you. And we know that nothing can stop you when you decide that you're going to be unstoppable. Shout out to Nikki Hammer. Thank you, Nikki, for joining us in the comments section. Definitely, she put in the number 1. She followed instructions. So everybody else, go ahead and put that number 1 if you are watching us live too, and go ahead and share it with some friends, because we definitely have a show that is worth sharing out this week. As you know, I always have great guests on the show, and with some great stories. Some of the stories will make you laugh. Some of the stories will make you think. Some of the stories will make you cry. And some of the stories will make you do all 3. And I think we've got one of those combinations this evening. We have got a powerful, powerful testimony from a woman who is just phenomenal. To list all the things that she has done and she is doing would take up the whole hour of the show. So we are not going to do that. But let me just tell you, just from what I know about her, because we've never met before, just only social media. And sooner or later, we're going to turn that online friendship into an offline friendship. I feel it in my spirit. But she is an author. She's a speaker. She hosts her own radio show on Facebook Live on Monday nights. She is a former federal and local police officer. She was in the military. She was in all types of sports in high school. She's married to a phenomenal man, and they're doing great things in their business as well as what she is doing in her nonprofit organization that she's going to tell you more about as the show goes on. But did I also tell you she was a victim of abuse growing up? Yeah, now you would think after I told you all those great things that are happening that you didn't see that one coming. You had no idea that that was coming. But yes, yeah, she was a victim of abuse. This person who excelled in military, who excelled as an officer on the local and the federal level, also was once abused by the people that you expect or never would expect to abuse you. She was also tossed around in the system, the foster care system, and the DHS, or as we call it here, DCFS system, the system. We'll just call it at that, for many, many years, along with her siblings. But thank God, not only does she not, but many of you who have been on the show before don't look like the things you've been through. Thank God for that. You know, I had the opportunity to work in the foster care system in the abuse and neglect system here in Illinois for 10 years in the court system, juvenile justice, Ogden Avenue. Each and every day I'd go in and I'd talk to children and I'd hear their stories of abuse or neglect, stories that would just turn my heart and really make me want to cry. And I wanted to take all the children and take them home and give them the love that they deserved. Now, not all the stories had a happy ending. Some of them did. Some of them, the families were able to reunify, and the parents were able to get their act together, and the family was stronger as a result of what they went through, and they moved on to live what some people would say is normal family lives. But in far too many cases, as you'll hear in the story tonight, that doesn't always work out for the children. They go through some things that make them have to grow up too fast. They grow through some things that make them make decisions that no child, no matter what age they are, have to make. But thank God that isn't the end of the story. That was just one of the chapters. And this phenomenal woman went from foster care to living in too many shelters to count, to depression and suicidal attempts. But this wonderful author speaker knows that it was nothing but the grace of God that kept her from jail, the streets, or worse. Even after going through 24 various foster homes because of abuse and neglect, she learned early on that if she didn't transform her mind, she would be consumed by the chaotic world behind her. Now, that's her bio, but we all know, you guys know, you watch this show, that we allow the author or the guest to tell their own story because they can give the best bio ever out there. So without further ado, we're going to welcome to the Unstoppable Story Show this phenomenal guest, author, speaker, Carlotta Taylor. Carlotta, are you in the building?
Absolutely, absolutely. I am here on the Unstoppable Story Show.
Hey, it's an unstoppable day, Carlotta. How are you?
I am fine and fabulous. Thank you so much, Terrence, for having me on.
You are so very welcome. So like I said, when we were offline, if by chance you freeze up, we're just going to have you go out and come back in again. Because, my audience knows that every Tuesday, the devil tries to get to the Unstoppable Story Show to make us prove that we actually are unstoppable. So we're not going to let a little thing like technology stop you, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So here we go. Why don't you start out by just giving our audience, the Unstoppable Stories audience, a brief introduction. I'm sure you can do a lot better than the bio that I just read out, but give them an opportunity to let them know who Carlotta Taylor is.
Well, I think you did an amazing job initially. However, I will try my best to be brief as possible. I am just a little girl who grew up in a family that was not healed and that was still suffering from pain and things that happened to them in their past, and they inflicted it on me and my oldest brother, who's 2 years younger than me. And for me, my world was just totally dark. And I lived in that state of mind for years, and it was hard. And finally, when I turned 13 and we moved from that situation, I just tried to fight my way through. And through life trials and tribulations, I just kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. And today here, I'm able to share my story with others and be inspirational. And like I like to say, walk in my purpose.
Well, I thank you for being courageous enough to tell this story. I mean, I got a chance to read the book, and like I told you, and like I said in the review, that this was it was a must read, and it was a book that just was really something that I couldn't put down after I started reading it. So we definitely are going to take the opportunity to hear more about the book. No More Flinching, 5 Steps to Overcoming Adversity. But like always, with any guest that we have on the show, Carlotta, you are no exception. We want to ask you the great questions that we ask everybody. And that simply is question number 1. What does it mean to you to be unstoppable?
Wow, that is a big question. That's a big question, but I would like to answer it right in 2 parts. The first part is, for me, to be unstoppable means you do not settle in life. Because when you settle, you stop. You're just accustomed to what's going on, change, get better, or grow. So if you settle, to me, that's not being unstoppable. That means you're stopped. You're not moving. You're not in motion. You're not growing. And 2 would be to walk in your purpose. And this time of my life, in this season, I understand what it's like to walk in your purpose. And all the time, walking in your purpose does not necessarily mean the job that you're working or the skills or the tools that you have or even talents. Because when you're in your purpose, you can't be unstoppable. Guess what? It'll stop when you clock out. Right? Your purpose is in each moment of the day, every person you talk to, you are living your purpose day and night. So I would like to say, when you're not settling in life and you're walking in your purpose, you can truly be unstoppable.
I love it. You know what? And I told you guys, we have never met. And she just gave you the same definition that you hear me say to you guys all the time. You know, I talk to you guys about walking in your purpose. I talk to you with the tagline, never settle for less when you can be unstoppable. And look, the Carlotta just came out and she just said it verbatim, almost like she's been following me forever.
I never heard it before.
Well, thank you for sharing that information and your definition. I think that is very true. And it looks like you are not only talking the talk, you're walking the walk. If we go by this phenomenal book that you are going to bless us with this evening. So let me ask you this, Carlotta. When we talk to peak guests on the show, we always want to know what made you decide to become an author. So what made you decide to become an author?
What made me decide to become an author was when I realized God did not spare my life just for me to survive, just for me to make it out. Because it's quite funny how I went from being the child who was abused, in and out of foster care, in and out of shelters, bullied, tried to commit suicide, told I would be nothing by my father. I would grow up to be nothing. I was dumb. I was stupid. And all the many children out there today, and even some adults who went through this, their lives are gone because they got hit one time the wrong way, or they were abused, or something severely wrong happened. Why did I make it out? Okay, so once I realized that, of course, that tied into my purpose, I knew then that I had to write the book. Now, I did procrastinate for years and years and years, which led me to doing it a little bit later than I would have liked to. But I had to write the book because I know it's my purpose in life to turn around and help others reach past their breaking points in life as well.
Love it. I love it. And you just segued into the third question. So you went through this situation, you came out this situation, but you procrastinated in telling this story. And that's not unusual. A lot of our authors that we talk to on the show, they've had this story in them for many, many, many years. And for one reason or another, they never got it out. So tell me, why now in 2019 did you decide to write this book?
Well, really at the end of 2018, it hit me all at once. I kept denying myself and saying, putting it off and procrastinating and getting distracted, allowing distractions to distract me from what I knew I needed to do. It just got to a point where I had to stop. And it doesn't take a lot for me, for God to get my attention. I put it that way. The God inside me speaks to me, lets me know that, hey, you need to do this now. I was driving down the road. You may have heard me say this before if you follow me. I was driving down the road, and I happened to look to my left, and I was passing a graveyard. And it just hit me in my spirit, are you going to go there with what I gave you? It was like pretty much God talking to me. And I said, I don't need a wreck. I don't need anything drastic or anything crazy to happen to me for me to, regret not ever writing my book or not ever moving forward. I said, I had enough. I'm done procrastinating. I'm going to get this done now. And that's all it took. Just a light little, a thought. I didn't need anything big. I said, okay, God, I'm not going to play with you anymore. I know what God put inside of me, and I know it had to get out to help and inspire other people.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? The fact that you went by a cemetery is very powerful, because in the speaker world, we talk about the richest place on earth is the cemetery, because in the cemetery are many of people's hopes and dreams that never became fulfilled, many stories that were never told, many ideals that never became created, because people were born, they lived that dash, and they took to the grave the gifts that God had placed inside of them. And so I'm glad that he passed you by that cemetery and he didn't leave you in that cemetery. Somebody's going to get that on replay. I'm so glad he let you pass by to see what opportunity you still had ahead of you, while you were still able to see the cemetery and not be in the cemetery, when you were still able to be above ground to give the story that he needed you to see before you went back to the ground.
Yes.
But this story, it's a heavy story. It is a heavy story. And I want to have our viewers know in advance that some of the things that Carlotta may or may not say may be tough to hear, especially if you haven't lived that life or you don't know anyone who's experienced that life. But Carlotta, I want you to, as much detail or as little detail as possible, tell us about the book, No More Flinching.
All right. So I was born in Brookhaven, Mississippi, but I can't really call it home because I didn't stay there long. In my toddler age, maybe a few weeks, a few months, I'm not sure on the details, but we wound up moving to Southfield, Michigan. And when my parents and I moved to Southfield, Michigan, we stayed with my beloved grandparents. And my grandfather, he's no longer here with us. His name is Frederick Vernon Taylor. And my grandmother, Annie Lee Taylor. We lived up there for a little bit, for a few years, and I remember the snow. I remember the Christmas lights. I was just a toddler, about 2 or 3 years old. I remember my onesie and just being in a place full of love, comfort, and coziness and happiness. I remember joy. Unfortunately, after my brother was born, which is 2 years later than me, and a little bit after that, we had to move and pretty much get out of the house. You know, parents back then, you know, if you're supposed to be, you know, my dad was supposed to, he was on a scholarship, promised scholarship, supposed to be going pro basketball, and my mom was from the, you know, South, and they got together, and I was kind of like in the way. But through all of that, they didn't want them sitting there at the house just having children. So we had to move. I did not know that on that ride back that my life would change forever. I did not know that once we made it to that house in Morton, Mississippi, when I got out, because I did something that, you know, I shouldn't have done. I was about 5 years old or so, and I did number 2 in my pants, but I didn't know it was going to come out like that. But that was my right. That was my first about my dad, and it was never the same after that. When he hit me, I was like, I knew something was wrong with this because it was too much. It was too painful. And from there, the time and the years, the beatings got worse and worse. The verbal abuse got worse and worse. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. Got my coffee right here. Right. The abuse got worse and worse. And what happened, when I say worse and worse, this is what I mean. My father, he did not mean to be this person. I do want to put that on the air. He was just, like in his words, he would say he was the victim who became the victimizer. So he has his own story for him to tell in due time. But he would hit me and my brother for anything. And when I say anything, and when I say hit, I mean a punch in the face, like in my face, in my head, in my eyes, for anything, not moving fast enough, not bringing his plate fast enough. You could be doing anything that he didn't approve of. It was constantly day in, bring your head here. And you just know you have to run to him and put your head in a place where he's going to punch you because you did something wrong. And there was no way to do anything right. It was going to happen. And it went on for years. Instead of being a little girl who went to school dressed with nice clothes and cute little barrettes in my hair, I wore black eyes to school. I wore broken arms, busted lips. I was, you know, we were beat with several different objects, from boards to, you know, just broomsticks, being hit in the head, in the crown of our head, popping us with broomsticks upside our head. And just to know that I made it through all of that, but it was still hard. It was hard. The house was never a home. It was always the house. That was the way of separating. And so I never called a home. And I'm not even sure, do I do it now? Yeah, I do it now. But for years of my life, I didn't. Now, when it comes to no more flinching, I used to always flinch. Could you imagine being hit all the time? I would always flinch because I was embracing myself for the impact, getting ready for the pain. And guess what? I knew it was coming and I expected it. I not only flinched when my father would hit me, I would flinch at school when a stranger was nearby. And you could reach for a pencil in my peripheral vision. And I'm flinching because it was a natural reflex, unconsciously. And that was a problem. It really became a problem once my mom divorced my father around 13. And as I got older, I did it for years and years. Could you imagine being somewhere with total strangers and you're flinching? And I was just so embarrassed. I was very quiet, very shy. I used to get bullied a lot, fought a lot. So it was a lot of things going on internally that really had my mind just, I was always a fighter. I fought within, but I harbored a lot of stress. And it wasn't until I started learning how to overcome all of the things that I went through. And I don't have to allow what happened to me to be who I am in my future. So I went in and out of life, just trying to find my way. It's almost like I was just falling out the sky, trying to grab onto anything I could. And my life took a lot of twists and turns, especially in relationships, because I never could get that right. What do you do when you're a little girl and you want to be daddy's little girl, but you're not? And you just want to know what it's like to be loved by somebody. I had no idea what that was like. So of course, my selection in men was just horrible. And I learned that time and over again. And I felt like I always had to be in a relationship, or I always had to be someone's girlfriend. So it took a toll on my life in that area, but I still persevered when it came to work. I was pretty much homeless around college age, around the 18, 19 in there, right before I got in my first major relationship. But I made decisions based off of survival. I needed a place to stay. I needed a home. So I went to college to have a place to stay. I got married entirely too young, however, and definitely not mature enough to know what I was really, really getting myself into. But I did it pretty much as a survival tactic, which is not ever good. So I went through a lot, and I learned a lot of lessons. And it came to a point in life where I decided no more. I have to take control of this, do the steps down. I'm pretty sure we're going to get to those steps.
Yeah.
How to go from being that abused child, but not allowing it to dictate your future.
And why don't yeah, I'm sorry, finish what you were about to say.
Well, I was going to say, just thank God that I did not get into any trouble, because I could have easily gotten in trouble. I could have easily been on the streets looking for answers the wrong way, reaching out to drugs and just getting into that type of environment. So I really thank God that I was not in that environment.
Absolutely. And so why don't we park right there for a second? We are talking to author and speaker Carlotta Taylor on the Unstoppable Stories show with Terrence Lefteridge, talking about her book, No More Flinching, 5 Steps to Overcoming Adversity. And I want to talk a little bit about what you went through, and then we'll take the rest of the time to talk about what you learned and what steps now people who are going through your situation, because let's keep it real, there are people that are going through your situation right now, and as unfortunate as it is, that just happens to be the state of our world these days. But when I read the book, I was just like, man, why would a 9-year-old have to go through this? And then I kept reading, and I said, why would an 11-year-old have to go through this? And then I kept reading. I was like, why is a 13-year-old having to endure this? And then I kept reading, and why is the 16-year-old and her siblings having to go through this again? So it was almost like most of your teenage years was a never-ending cycle. Would that sound about right?
It sounds exactly right. It sounds exactly right. And it was such a cycle that I just really truly believe that nothing good would ever happen for me. It wasn't even a thought to just believe that I could get accepted to college, because it wouldn't happen for me, because I'm Carlotta Taylor and I'm a stupid dumb girl that won't be anything when I get older. So it had me in total captivity. And
so right there, because that's something else we didn't really say a whole lot. Not only in this book, No More Flinching, do you talk about the physical abuse that you endured from your father, but you also talk about the verbal abuse that you received from kids that you went to school with, from some of the foster homes you unfortunately ended up being put in, as well as some of your teachers too at school, right?
Right.
So how did, looking back, how was it that you overcame all those obstacles that, as you say in your bio, that you almost you attempted suicide in your life? How did you overcome all that?
Wow. That's a huge question. I know by the grace of God I overcame. That's number one, because I don't think it was really any power that I have just totally without the presence of God and angels watching over me, totally and truly. But when you're picked on in school and you hate to go to school because you're going to be picked on by everybody, laughed at, talked about, made a mockery of in front of the class by the teachers, but I think they called themselves helping, but it made it even worse. And then you're afraid to go home, afraid to go outside because you just feel unworthy. It was really hard. I cannot say that I just made it because I'm just some super person. But even though I do know that my father, he was extremely, extremely hard, tough, or whatever you want to call that, somewhere inside, I had a heart to just want to live. I had a heart to want to make it. It just one day, it just came, it was too much. And after when you're getting stomped in the ground by your father, I'm not talking about a beating or just being punched in the face. I'm talking about kicked in the stomach, you balled up on the ground, and he's just stomping you and calling you a, whore and things like that, all this other kind of stuff. That was one of my lowest of lows. And at that point, I just went and grabbed some pills and just popped them. And I know for a fact, I would not be here if it wasn't for God and his protection over me, because anytime I talk about this portion, I always have to say that at that moment, I will never forget it, thank God. But there was a calmness, and it was like a big bright light that came to my right. And this peace, this uncontrollable peace came over me. And I just felt like it just hit me. You're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Just give it a little time. And I don't know how much time there was going to be. I was personally thinking, okay, I just need to make it till I'm 18 years old and I will be okay. But that's all I had to hold on to for years. And guess what? That's what I held on to. I'm going to be okay. I know it was an angel that was right there with me. I just kept holding on to that. Even when it got really, really rough. Even when the doors and the window sills were stuffed with towels and we were screaming so loud and the house was soundproof, and we were just getting beat and beat. It's like, would it ever stop? Nobody came to our rescue. Nobody. Had a police officer live right next door. So it was just years and years and years of just abuse and sadness and darkness. I used to believe that I was kidnapped because I didn't think no parents would treat their children the way me and my brother was treated. So my mindset was just on survival mode. Just gotta make it. How am I gonna make it? And by the grace of God, the divorce intervened. And that started the process of just being away, but I still had to work out the kinks because, like I said, I used to flinch all the time, and now we're not even living with my dad anymore.
Yeah, but the damage is already done. Yeah, I got you. You know what? And as I told you guys, this is a powerful story. Nikki Hammer, she's in the feed, and she says she's been there herself as well. And I know exactly what she's talking about. Thank you for sharing that with us, Nikki. We also have Arlene Collins Wilson, who's also watching, and she says she's a survivor of abuse. So this is resonating with her. And we also have my lovely wife, Sharon Johnson Leffert, saying, but God, look at you now. And that's how we started the show. You know what? Thank God you don't look like what you're going through. And it's not only thank God, but it's but God, because many times we hear these stories and we say, where was God? Why weren't you here as I was going through this? And in the greatest book ever written, it says he will be with you through the storm. And he was with you through the storm, and he was preparing you for this day. Even though at 9, at 11, at 13, at 18, you didn't even think this day would come. Yeah. But look at you now and the testimony that you have this day because of all the things you went through. It's a powerful story. It's a blessing. And we want to segue into now. We heard the bad. Now we want to talk about in what you learned from going through the bad, how you can help other people overcome. Now, she's got 5 steps to overcoming adversity in the book, but you know what? We ain't going to give you all of them because you need to get the book. And we're going to give you an opportunity to get a copy of the book towards the end of the show. But let's talk about one of the tips that you feel is important for our audience to know in terms of overcoming adversity and no longer flinching. And the number 1 tip you said was get it out. What did you have to get out in order for you to stop the actual flinching and the mental flinching and to be the strong, positive woman that you are today?
Wow. Big question, but I have an answer for that. What I had to get out, I had to get all of the connections and attachments out. If I just harbored all of that experience and the pain and the sorrow, then I'm just a human walking around with a lot of pain and a lot of sorrow. I had to talk to her with my closest friends. I had to cry it out. There were times that I had to go into my backyard, and sometimes I would just scream. One time I was riding down the street, and I looked to my right, and I saw a man playing with his little girl, and they were playing on the basketball field. And I saw him, well, court, not field, right? And he raised her up. He raised her up so she could make the goal. And when she put that basketball in that goal, and she was just a little girl, guess what? I didn't even know it. I was just driving. I just happened to glance over, and I saw that little act. It took about a few seconds for that to happen. When I saw that, I just broke down crying. I'm driving, trying to figure out how to see. And I would just have to realize it did do something to me. See, for a long period of time, I was walking around like I'm just tough, it's all right. What my dad did to me, it didn't bother me. I'm good, I'm strong. But guess what? All the while, it really did. I just had a tough outer shell. But inside, I was like a teddy bear. If you get to know me, you might think, oh, she tough, she this, she that. But really, I know I have a big heart, and I really care for people, but I had to really get to a point where I had to get it out. I talked to people where it came to praying, meditation, friends, getting it out. You have to get it out, because for the sole purpose of this, if you keep it in, then it's still inside of you. And I did not want to repeat it going down and being transferred to my children, being a repeat offender or being a repeat person passing it down. I didn't want to do that. And if I hold on to it, it's gonna carry with me in my future. Just because it's a part of my past doesn't mean it has to be a part of my present or my future. So I had to let it go. And that's why getting it out is so important. And it could be anything for different people. It doesn't have to be the same thing for different people. For me, I did everything I could think I could do, everything I could think of, whether it was crying out. Sometimes you just got to cry those tears out. And sometimes you just have to talk to who you need to talk to. And even if you have to get counseling or special help or even more, you have to do what you have to do to get that out of your system. You do not want to live every day of your life harboring all of that pain. Doesn't matter what you've been through. You do not have to hold on to it. Let it go. Let it go. That's the thing I can tell you to do.
Absolutely. And Martin Sika, who's joining us in the chat room, he's saying so true. He definitely agrees with what you're saying. And it's just like the proverbial Coke bottle. If you have a warm Coke bottle on the shelf and you go get that Coke bottle and you shake it up and you shake it and you shake it and you punch it and you hit it and you're taking body blows and you try to take the top off of that bottle, well, all of that pain, all of that sorrow, all that hurt, all those hits, all those blows is stuck inside that bottle and it's never been released. And unfortunately, when you finally release that Coke bottle, what happens? Everything explodes. Because you have been shaken and you've been tossed and you've been turned till you can't be shaken, tossed, and turned anymore. And I bring us around to what's happening in our world today. There are a lot of souls out there that are being shaken, flinched, hit, beat, stomped, and they've been holding it inside as well. And now they've been given the opportunity to get AK-47s or 9mm or hatchets or whatever, or bombs. And now the Coke bottle, the pressure is coming off. If they only had these tools, if they only had these 5 steps that you have in your book to talk about the adversity before the Coke bottle exploded, then maybe our world would be in a better place. So I am so glad that you have this out here. And I'm so glad that you came on the show so that we can get it out to somebody who may be not quite at that point where the top is about to explode, but they've been in a similar situation to you. And just briefly, I want you to tell the story, because in the book, you talk about the first time you actually got it out. And it was with 2 of your teenage friends. And it was difficult before you to have friends at that age because you were going through all these things that you were going through with your family and from place to place being moved around. It was really hard for you to even get to the point where you had people you called friends to tell this story to, right?
Yes.
So tell us briefly about the first time you were able to get it out to your friends.
Well, the first time I was able to get it out to my friends was at Forest Hill High School, and we were in the foyer one day. I never forget that day. My two closest friends at the time was Waukesha Mason and then Tamise Thomas, who is now Tamise Lanier. And we were like, I forgot our little group name, but we had like a little group name and everything. And so we was like, hold up in the circle. And I don't know what made me share this with them on this day, but I shared it with them. And by the time I was finished telling my story, they was like, we would have never known. So I covered it pretty well. But we were all just in tears and crying. Like, and I knew they were my friends' friends. They really loved me and they really had my back. But that was one of the first moments, and it was very therapeutic for me. And it was like the beginning of my early healing process. So that was very transformational. And that's when I knew I needed more of that. I didn't just share it one time. I continued to share it when the moment called for it. I didn't just go on the ceilings and rooftops shouting it out. But when the time permitted itself, I would share my story when need be and just getting it out. That pretty much started the process right there.
I love it. We're talking to Carlotta Taylor, speaker and author of the book No More Flinching, here on the Unstoppable Story Show. And before we go to the next point, I want to get this question out. Nikki asked you this question. My question is that when you went through that mentally physical abuse in your mind, was you able to find a safe place to go in your mind while the situation was being played out? So before you had the opportunity to get it out with your girlfriends, how did you deal with it, with the abuse that was going on in your own mind? Did you have a safe place to go, or what did you do to kind of shield yourself from everything that was going on?
My safe place has always been my grandfather. Just the thought of him. And he's no longer with us here on earth today, but I do know I feel him. He's always been that protector for me. So I would think about him, even though there was nothing he could actually do, or even my grandparents, my grandmother, who's still alive today, she's 92. But I would think about my grandparents, and that would be like my safe place because I knew they loved me and they cared about me and they showed me that. And I would just want to hold on until the next time I could see them or talk to them. I had their number memorized in my head, so anytime that I could speak with them, that was just my gauge. So, and nevertheless, I was very, very, I was an introvert, very, very shy, did not talk much. Once again, didn't have many friends, so I never really escaped. I just endured. I have a high tolerance for pain, I guess, obviously, because of what I went through, but I just held on and just wanted the moment to stop. And I just kept holding on, and God just kept making sure I didn't go anywhere and kept me sane. That was a great question.
I love it. And we want to shout out to Frederick Vernon Taylor and Annie Lee Taylor. There is a powerful chapter in the book. It's actually the very first chapter, A Life with Grandma and Grandpa. It's definitely something that you're going to want to read. It read almost like one of those Hallmark Channel movies when I was watching it, when I was reading it. And I was like, wow. It just seemed like it was a wonderful time, a place and time in your life. And I wish that had been your entire childhood, not just a small snippet of it. But with that, you didn't stay negative. You kept being positive. You kept finding a way to persevere and overcome everything that you were going through throughout your teenage years, into your adulthood, into some of the situations you were placed into, or even some of the places you escaped to get away from what you were going through. Through all that time, you were speaking positive. So how did you find the strength, and how do you tell our audience now to speak positive in the adversity that they're going through?
Well, for one, that is a great question as well. You asked some really good questions. For one, I didn't know until I knew. I was searching. I was searching for a better way to do life. And it wasn't until I knew that I had to stop and take control of my thoughts and my speech. I didn't know seriously how powerful my words were. I didn't know it worked. I just felt like I was just in a wreck, and woe is me. And that's just forever how it will always be. But I really started to pay attention to it. And I was like, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to stop just saying the things that I'm used to, experiencing in life, and stop thinking the way I'm used to thinking in life. I'm going to really take control over what I say. So if I start saying anything negative, I will immediately correct my own self. I wouldn't let anything negative or negative shadowing come out of my mouth. I wouldn't say I couldn't do something. I wouldn't say it wouldn't work out for me. I would stop those thoughts right where they are, or right where they were. And this really started, and I want to give credit to this. This really started one day when I went to church. I don't remember exactly how old I was. I don't even remember the church. I just remember the experience I had when I went in and I sat in the back row. The preacher was talking about the devil was doing everything he can to steal from you, to kill you, and to destroy you. And he just was on one of those sermons. I remember it. And he was talking about the devil been sending his best after you. He's doing nothing works out right. Every door that you feel like you're going to walk through is always closing. Nothing works out right for you, but you're still here. And when he said, but you're still here, and the devil's been sending his best, he just started doing a coaching and just kept going over that. And it really dawned on me, wait a minute, I'm still here. The devil been sending his best after me. I've been through so much. How am I still alive? How am I still making it? Obviously, the devil not doing that good of a job, and maybe God has really protected me, so maybe I'm stronger than what I know I am. So that was like the first little click to get me to start realizing I don't have to always live this way or always think this way. So I immediately started stopping things coming out of my mouth that shouldn't. So when I did that, my life started to change. My reaction started to change. Before long, when I look up and I knew it, somebody was in my personal space, reaching for things, I'm just like a normal person. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not flinching anymore. Oh my God. Now, it took a while, but it actually happened. And I knew then it works. So we have so much power within us. God gives us so much power. We just have to tap into it and be ready to receive the information when it comes. So that's why I specialize in today is helping people turn away from the old things they used to do. And just know you can start today. You can start right now. It does not have to always be the way it's been. Very, very important.
Wow. And you know what we always talk about, if you want to change the way things are, you got to change who you are. It's an inside game. You got to start from the inside. It's a mindset thing. And you decided to change your mindset. You decided to stop focusing on the bad things that was happening in our lives. Many of us, we focus on we have our conversations with God and we say, why me? Why are you sending me through all this? And when you change that to saying, well, why not me? Then you get a better understanding of what you were going through was not just to go through it, but to grow through it, and then to be able to give something back to somebody else. Because like we said, yeah, you were part of the DHS system. So I'm sure in the different shelters and the different foster homes, you weren't the only ones there, right?
Right.
So there was not. Even though what you went through, nobody else had gone through it the same way, there are other people that was going through at that time. And in 2019, there are other people that are still going through. But now they have the testimony of Carlotta Taylor and how she was able to go from flinching to no more flinching to being not only a military standout, but a decorated police officer, detective, and to become a federal police officer on top of that, and still be this entrepreneur and start her own nonprofit and be here on the Unstoppable Story Show sharing her story right now. Now, if that ain't a why not me, I don't know what else there could be. What do you think?
I think that's it. I just thank God for now that I look back over my life and the way things were lining up. Even when I was in law enforcement, going to school, getting a master's degree, a master's in leadership. And I had no idea why I was getting a master's in leadership, but how everything is lining up. It was all for a purpose and a plan, like you said earlier. God knew I would be right here today talking with you on the Unstoppable Show. And everything lined up the way it's supposed to line up. And now my goal is to be of service, to help people, to help inspire, to help you believe that you can do it too. Because there are entirely too many children out there in the world that are still flinching. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, there's some child right now flinching right now before they're about to get hit or abused or sexually abused or spoken wrong over, psychologically abused. And we need to put a stop to it. And I know by reading my book, No More Flinching, it would enlighten people so they can get a good side. And sometimes you can be on one side of the fence and you really can't see everything clearly. Even if you aspire to be a foster parent, or even if you have children, you get to see things from a different angle, because one of my pet peeves is when people foster children, and that's so great, don't do it for yourself. Make sure you're doing it for the child, and make sure that the child knows that you love them and you're going to treat them just like you do all the other children of the family.
Yes.
That's the key. Because I know me and my brother was sitting down on the sofa at it was one of our best foster care homes experiences that we've had throughout the whole process. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It stands out to me like a sore thumb. The very, very day that we were sitting on the sofa and there was a family party for all the children. And guess what? All the children were getting ready and we was looking, we're very mannerable, so we're not going to get up and just, force our way there. Everybody's getting up, having a good time. We're watching TV. And all the children leave out the door, and guess who's left behind? The foster kids. Yeah. So even though you thought you was helping us, we would have rather been at the shelter, playing the games, Nintendo and everything, and falling in line with everybody else at the shelter. At least we were there. But it's just little things like that children will never forget. And unfortunately, they grow to be adults who hold on to those things.
Absolutely. And we're talking to Carlotta Taylor, speaker and author of the book No More Flinching, a definite must read on the Unstoppable Story Show. And you know what? I told you I used to work in child advocacy for 10 years. So I had the opportunity to visit foster homes a lot. I mean, a lot. And the one thing that always warmed my heart is when I went into that foster home and I talked to the foster parent, and the foster parent said, "These are my children." Okay. And then I would say, "Oh, is that your son?" And yeah, that's my son. Is that your daughter? Yeah. And then they would be talking about their biological kids. And then they would say, "But also these are my children too." They didn't make a distinction. Every child in that house was their child. And it just warmed my heart to see when people looked at children as children, not as foster children or someone that you were just using to hold a space. And I think you started to say it earlier. I ain't got a problem with saying it. People who were just collecting a check.
Ooh, yeah, yes.
I said it because I saw it. You could tell a parent who was in it for the money, and I'm talking about biological relatives that were in it for the money, not in it for the well-being of the kids. And so your story, while very painful, I saw it over and over and over again for 10 years. So to see those few parents, like the family that you and your brother had the opportunity to be with, that for the most part loved you and treated you the way you needed to be treated, except for that one time when they forgot that they had welcomed you into their family, and then they separated you because you weren't part of the biological family. That can scar you mentally, probably even more than the physical beatings that you got. And we have to be cognizant of that whenever we decide to take in somebody else, whether it's a child or whether it's another human being. Whenever we are helpful, we have to make sure, like Carlotta said, that we are helping for the right reasons. So I wanted to throw that out there before we got to your last tip that you wanted to share with how people can no more flinch and overcome their adversity. It's all well and good that you got it out, you talked it out, you got it off your chest, but there's this component that a lot of people never get to, and it's what keeps them stuck in place, and it's what stops them from truly living a wonderful life, and that's this thing called forgiveness. And I want you to talk about forgiveness, especially in terms of your father, because you talked about your father has his own story. And the one thing that we know in the world of abuse and neglect and domestic violence is that hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
But the other thing we know is that people who never learn to forgive others never, ever find forgiveness for themselves. Would you agree that that's true?
I would say that is absolutely true, because forgiveness was really, it was not one of those things where I say, okay, I forgive him. That was not the case, and it was done. For several years, I believe I used to hate my dad. And this is when I was, in 10, 11, 12, 13, around that age frame. I know I used to hate him. And just in the way that you would hate somebody, I just really hated being around them. It was a lot. And then when I got older, it stayed with me. And then it got to a point where, you know what? My dad has his own story. I had to grow into this. I need to let go. I need to forgive. I need to forgive him and even my mother, even though I don't talk about my mom abusing me because she never physically abused me, but I used to hate her just as much back then. Back then now. Reason being because I would say to myself, how can a mother allow a man to do that to her children?
Yeah.
But,
and I noticed that in the book, as much as you talked about the abuse from your dad, you said some things about your mom, but your mom in the world of DHS and DCFS, as we used to look at it, your mom was more of the neglect than the abuse. And those can have equally devastating consequences, wouldn't you say?
That is absolutely true. It really is. But then I had to go back and look at my mom's past and how she was raised. And she is very soft-spoken. She's sweet as pie. And she had a lot of things going on with herself as well. And so, man, it took several years. I can't even put a number on it, at least 3 to 4. That's at the least for me to really get to a point where I could say I forgave my parents. And I really had to put myself in their shoes and walk out their life and say, oh, wow, if this would have happened to me, maybe I would have been, I don't know. I just thank God I'm not that way to mine. However, it was a long process. And I had to get that going because there's no way that I could have written a book. There's no way I could speak to people. There's no way I could be sound and whole as a person holding on to all that baggage and still harboring unforgiveness in my heart. Especially when it comes to my parents, because I will be weighed down. Eagles can't fly with a whole bag of garbage on top of them.
Say it.
I had to let that go. And no matter how I felt about it, I may not understand it. And I probably will never understand it. I will never understand it because I've been through some tough times too. But I'm just thankful to say that I know when it comes to my part that I didn't just turn around and be that same person. And now I'm not perfect. I had to also notice that I'm not 100% perfect either, but I'm all here to try to get better, be my best self every day. But forgiveness plays a major part in everything. It's got to be a piece to the puzzle in order for you to be complete and whole and move forward in life. So I would encourage anyone, all the people who went through anything, abuse or anything close to it, or just anything somebody did to you that was hurtful, do not hold on to it. Let it go so you can actually live your life. And what I mean by that, if you stay in unforgiveness, I heard somebody say something that's like this, but I'm going to tack it on to forgiveness. If you stay in unforgiveness and you live, let's just say you live 85 years. It's not like you're living 85 years. It's like you're living the same year over and over 85 times. I want to live my life. I want to be free. I want to be free as a bird. And you can't do that harboring unforgiveness in your heart.
So was there a defining moment then in your life that where the light bulb came on to actually now do forgiveness after you were harboring all that hate for your father and some hate for your mom, and then even some if not hate, some discouragement, some disdain for all the foster homes that you went through where they didn't treat you and your brother the way you needed to be treated? What was that defining moment that allowed you to start forgiving?
Well, I believe it was little seeds that was planted, even though it was really, really hard and dark and gray in my life. There were little seeds that was planted. Like my mom, she would still like read me bedtime stories, and it would be like gospel stories, like Bible stories. Bible stories, things that happened, the stories of Job, the stories of Jesus and Mary. It'd be like little stuff like that, and I would hold on to those memories. And then my grandparents. So just taking all of that, turning that, helped me get to that process. It helped me get further closer to that. Could you repeat the last question one more time too? Because I want to make
so
sure.
Yeah, you pretty much put it out there. There with the defining moment. It sounds like you were able to remember some of the good times, and I think that's important, because no matter what you're going through, no matter how bad things might be, again, that mindset comes into play. And if you can stop for a moment and remember a good time, then that allows you to get into a different space. And if you can change your situation, sometimes it requires you to change your location. Sometimes it requires you to step outside of yourself. And when you step outside of yourself, then you have the ability to look at somebody for on a different perspective than the perspective that we look at. Sometimes, we say we can't see the picture because we're part of the frame. And when you step outside of that frame, then you can see the picture as it is, as opposed to the story that now we've been created, whether true or embellished, if you may say, because when a story is devastating, then in embellishing and in telling the story over and over, it becomes more and more devastating. But when you take that second to step outside of the situation and see the situation for what it is, then that gives you the opportunity to do what you did, to begin the long process of forgiveness. We're not telling anybody that she learned to forgive in a matter of days. This was a process, and she talks about the process in the book. And whatever you're going through, whatever you need to forgive somebody for right now, recognize it is a process. It may be quicker for you than it was for Carlotta. It may be longer for you than it was for me. But whatever it is, it's each one of us, in order for us to stop being in that vicious circle that Carlotta was going through for much of her teenage years, you've got to start at some point and forgive, along with the other two steps where you have to speak positivity into your life, and then you've got to get it out. Every one of those things that Carlotta spoke on, she has done. And that's why you see the beautiful woman sitting in front of you today, bruise-free mentally and physically, willing to be able to step out and help other people get it out and speak positivity over their own lives, and recognizing that they no longer have to flinch anymore. So I applaud you. I appreciate you for your strength, your inner strength, and your outer strength to create such a powerful document. Don't let the size of the book fool you guys. This is power. This is a power-packed 79 pages of great reading right here. And I'm so glad that you gave me a copy of the book and I got a chance to read it. But now somebody has heard everything we just talked about, and they want to get a copy of this book, and they want to have a deeper conversation with Carlotta. I know it. I know you're just going to blow up after this. So how can somebody get a copy of the book and get in contact with Carlotta and all the other things that you're doing?
Okay. 3 ways you can get a copy of the book, No More Flinching. One is you can get your autographed copy by ordering directly from our website, which is www.carlottataylor.com. And of course, you will fill it out and put your address in there, and I will sign all copies before I ship them out personally. Now, two, you can also get it from Amazon. Okay, of course, you know, you have to run it to me some kind of way to get it signed, but you can also pick it up from Amazon and Kindle. It is available on Kindle. If you would like to get in contact with me on all the social media, you can look up Carlotta Taylor on Facebook, Twitter. Instagram is official Carlotta Taylor. And once again, my website, carlottataylor.com. If you would like to have a conversation, book a consultation, or just you want to more one-on-one things of that nature, or for a speaking engagement, you can email me at info@carlottataylor.com. That's info@carlottataylor.com, or at cdtgroupllc@gmail.com.
Fabulous. So CarlottaTaylor.com. That is the best way to get in contact with you. I'm putting the email address up. I'm sorry, everybody knows I don't type as fast as I talk. So here we go. info@carlottataylor.com. If you want to drop her a message, drop her a word of encouragement, get more information about where her next speaking engagements are. But also you can go to carlottataylor.com if you want to get your signed autographed copy of the book. Go to Amazon if you want to put a review. But if you want to make sure you get your signed copy and Carlotta gets all the proceeds, go to carlottataylor.com. and get your copy of the book, No More Flinching, 5 Steps to Overcoming Adversity. I highly recommend it. It is an Unstoppable author's seal of approval, and you won't be disappointed by reading this book. Carlotta, thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to meeting you in person one day, and we collaborating on doing some great things. I love that you are working with the children, helping them overcome their adversity. Take a second to talk about your nonprofit, and then give us a final thought for the audience.
Somebody Step In Incorporated is a nonprofit organization. It's actually awaiting 501c3 status from the IRS right now, but we are working. We're not just waiting on the documentation to come back. We're working right now. We're over 24 people plus strong, people who are volunteers helping out in the communities, helping in the special area of foster youth and aged out foster youth. We all know, if we don't, we need to know that a lot of times when children are fostered or if they go through the foster care system, a lot of them, when they age out, they have nowhere to turn to. Because as Terrence mentioned earlier, a lot of the foster parents are doing it just for the check. Hate to say that, but a lot of times it's very true. When they close their doors on them once they age out. So we're there to let them know, hey, listen, we know what it's like. We've been there, done that. You can move on in life. You don't have to allow what happened to you to dictate your future. So we're here. We're stepping in, being what we need to do, doing what we need to do to help people get to the next processes with driver's license or inspiration, coaching, mentorship, just whatever it takes to let you know you're not alone. So we love to come out. We've partnered with several other nonprofit organizations to help out and just get the word out about Somebody Step In. We're going to be doing some amazing, great things coming pretty soon. So you can also follow Somebody Step In by just going into Facebook and just typing in Somebody Step In and just going on, checking out. You can become a part of the community if you like by sending a message to that area as well.
I love it. That is phenomenal. So if you guys are in the Mississippi area, the central Mississippi area, and you want to get more information, go on over to the Facebook page for Somebody Stepped In and see all the phenomenal things that Carlotta is doing in the community to help the least of us. We talk about that in the Bible. Those who helps the least of us helps the greatest of us. And she is definitely helping those who haven't developed their voice and may not be able to help themselves as they move through what should be the best part of their lives. Unfortunately, it sometimes ends up being the most devastating part of their lives. But God but Carlotta Taylor. Thank you. Thank you so much, Carlotta. We appreciate you. Thank you for reaching out to me and allowing me to review your book. You guys go to carlottataylor.com, get a copy of the book, and then go to Amazon and give her a 5-star review, because I already know in advance that No More Flinching is a 5-star caliber book. Thank you so much, Carlotta. I don't want you to put you back down in the lobby, but don't disconnect yet. I want to talk to you offline, okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks again to Carlotta Taylor, our guest on the Unstoppable Story Show. I told you that it was a powerful story. Did we get all the comments out there? Martin Sika said, "Thank you for sharing." D. Lynn said, hurt people. Absolutely. And let's see, did we get it? We got all the other ones. Thank you, Nikki, for putting that question in. I know Carlotta appreciated that question, and she was more than happy to answer it. So that is a wrap for tonight's show. But I just want you guys to recognize that, you know what? We all go through adversity, whether you go through it as a child or whether you go through it as an adult. Adversity is adversity. And if you don't get the steps, the tools necessary to overcome adversity, you will always be stopped. And the one thing we never want you guys to do is to be stopped here on the Unstoppable Story Show. So we want you to recognize that all you have to do is get it out. Don't keep it in. Get it out. And then speak positivity over your life, no matter what you're going through. If you speak positive affirmations over your life and you continue to fill your life with positive things, then the negativity, even though it may not go away, it won't be in control. And then finally, forgive. Because here's the one thing I know. The forgiveness is not for the person that you're forgiving. The forgiveness is for you. And when you can forgive yourself and forgive yourself for the situations that you found yourself in, then you open up a whole new possibility for your life. Carlotta, look at her. She forgave. She got it out. She spoke positivity over her life, and she's no longer that abused, neglected child that she talks about in her book. She is a beacon of life who is giving back to others. And if she can do it, hey, you can do it too. All right, that's our time here on the Unstoppable Story Show. Thank you. Again, if this was a blessing to you, then go ahead and like and share it out to people that you know that might be going through an abusive situation in their lives. Let's share this story, and maybe this story will be the lightning rod, will be the defining moment that will allow them to move from abuse into arising and living the unstoppable life that they were created to live as well. And tune in and join us again next week. Hey, we are starting a new segment on the Unstoppable Story Show. It's called the Unstoppable Author Showcase. So if you are an author that needs to get your message out to the masses, then I want you to go ahead and DM me. Send me a message. Let me know that you are an author that needs help getting your message out to the masses. And we will work with you to help you showcase your book and showcase all the messages that you have to get out as a result of the book. So you can simply reach out to me. You can DM me here on the Unstoppable Stories page, or you can email me at my website, which is info@unstoppablecoaching.com. info@unstoppablecoaching.com. Tell me a little bit about you, the author, and your book. And who knows, you may be one of the next guests on the Unstoppable Author Showcase, a new segment to the Unstoppable Story Show. So we look forward to hearing your stories. We look forward to helping you and serving you so that you can get your message out to the masses. Why? Because I know your message is going to inform somebody. I know your message is going to entertain somebody. And I know your message is going to educate somebody. Somebody's waiting on you to tell your story. Let us hear the unstoppable story help you do that. And as always, wherever you are in the world today, you know what I say. Don't just make it a great day, make it an unstoppable day. Talk to you soon.